Yesterday we talked a little bit about the basics of functions and how we determine if something is a function and how to solve for functional values. Today we're going to continue with the solving for functional values and do operations. Now, operations is a vocabulary word that I hope you've at least heard before, but you might not realize what it all encompasses. So operations basically are your basic for functions. And when I mean, sorry, I shouldn't use the word functions. It's a function, but it's not the kind of function we're talking about today. Operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So when we talk about operations on functions, we're going to add functions together, we're going to subtract them from each other, we're going to multiply them together, and we're also going to divide them. So conceptual knowledge behind this is just basically, addition and subtraction of functions is easy. You get the two functions, you add them together, you simplify, and you're done. Same thing with subtraction. Subtraction, you have to be really careful you do them in the right order so that when you're subtracting it, you're actually subtracting the right thing from it. Multiplication and division is basically the same thing. This is really not a tough concept. So multiplication and division, you multiply the two functions together. If they're two binomials, you've got to use FOIL. All right? If they're binomial and a trinomial, you have to distribute. That's when it gets complicated. All right? So you have to know your rules of functions. So, or not of functions, but of doing different functions. So, all right. So here we have our just two basic functions. F of x equals negative 3x plus 2, and then g of x equals x to the third. Now it's important we know which one is which so that we know what we're doing when we move forward. So f of x is this function, g of x is that one. All right. So let's look at the first idea. So I have f plus g of x, okay? So we're going to just add these two functions together. Well, f of x is this function right here, and g of x is this function right here. I can make it go up, there we go, okay? So we're just going to add them together. Negative 3x plus 2 plus x to the third. Now, none of these are common terms, so these are all different terms. So we're going to simply rewrite it in the right order, okay? You've been in math long enough that you know we go descending order with exponents. So x to the third minus 3x plus 2, and that's my answer. So what happens if we're going to subtract? Now subtracting, notice it's f minus g of x. So we start with the same function, 3x plus 2 minus x to the third. Again, can't simplify it at all. So we rewrite it. Negative x to the third minus 3x plus 2. And it's a negative x to the third because it was subtracting x to the third from the function. Okay, last one, it asks me to do g minus f of x. So this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to start with x third minus negative 3x plus 2. Notice I put the negative 3x plus 2 in parentheses. Okay, this is important because that minus sign has to be distributed. So I end up with x to the third plus 3x because a negative and a negative is positive, minus 2 because I distributed. All right, that was example 1. Let's see if you can do practice problem number 1. So obviously a little more complicated because they are square roots, but the idea is the same. Add them together, subtract them from each other. So there's your answers. You couldn't simplify at all. How easy was that? All right, example 2. So now we have multiplication and division. Again, still not that hard. All right, we're just multiplying and dividing equations together. So we're going to start with fg of x. So we're going to take negative 3x plus 2 times x to the third. This one I simply have to distribute, right, x to the third. And I end up with negative 3x to the fourth plus 2x to the third. Right? All I did was distribute this x to the third to everything inside the other set of parentheses. Okay? If you remember your exponent rules, I have x times x to the third is x to the fourth, because now there's 4 instead of 3. If I'm going to divide, now I take the f of x, divide it by g of x, and there's really nothing else I can do. I can't simplify that any further. Now I'm going to do the other way. G of x divided by f of x. All right. Here's your practice problem. Now it says the directions say write the rule. It means find f times g and f divided by g, because it's not going to end up being a number. It'll be a solution. So now one thing I want to point out here in the f divided by g is that they did rationalize the denominator. That's important. If you don't remember how to do that, look up a YouTube video on it. It's out there. Good. All right. And that's it. There's only 2 examples today. So I will see you tomorrow.